And welcome into a day that ends in a Y on the FFU, and you know what that means. It's the more Scott Fishbowl roster reviews. We are here. We are rocking and rolling through every one you sent us. I know we have done quite a few of them, and we still have quite a ways to go. So we are continuing this from week 1 into week 2. But yeah, so thank you all for joining us. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the reviews, all the ratings, everything. We appreciate all the feedback we get from you guys. So the more feedback we get from you guys, the more we continue to do this. So let's just hop right into this, will we? No, don't need to take any more time. We all know what we're doing here. So let's hop in. So as you can see here, we're going to do these reviews. But the one thing I did want to do is I wanted to give a shout out to Andy over at Rate My League. So if you go to his website, check it out. He actually does this every year for Scott Fishbowl. You go, it's his pin tweet. He rates and reviews every single roster, gives you a rating with numbers per roster. It's a fun thing you should go check out. So I know we're doing this for every roster, but it's something you guys should particularly check out. Just go there. You'll see all the fun stuff we did. I know we have a pin tweet ourselves that shows all 4 of our individual teams and how they did in our divisions. I think Aaron was by far the best. He was number 296. My team was like 1177. Jeremy was somewhere in the middle, and SE was in the 2000. So just kind of shows you how each of our, like, we picked a lot of the same guys, but they are quite different. It depends on your leagues and all that fun stuff. But where we left it off last week, we left it off with Brad. So we were going to hop into Kirk's roster reviews. So the sumiowrestler at Red Rum. I wanted to hop into that. No, not right now. We have Christian McCaffrey going off with the 101. Excuse me 1 second. Stop that now. We have Christian McCaffrey going off with the 101. Jaden Daniels going at the 212. So CMC and then Jaden Daniels at the 212. That's well done. That's how you do it. You start it out, you go from there. You get 2 high impact players. A little early for Jaden Daniels, but you know what? I get it because he's one of the last quarterbacks to do that. As you can see in this division, he went off with the 12. So it's a little bit higher. Kyron Williams going off at the 312. That's the RB9. That's really good value on that. So it is what it is. We have Evan Ingram at the tight end 6 prices. Now that one's nice at the 401. You've gotten yourself 4 impact players doing that. We have Deshaun Watson at the 512 going off the quarterback 18. That's another guy that's, upside, big shot on that. If he hits well, your roster's going to look really good. Then we go to the guy who's been my guy that I've been hyping up nonstop, Rashid Shaheed, 601. I think that's really good value. I know the ADP say it's a little bit of a reach. I do not care. I think he's well worth that price. You can get him a lot earlier, and I have no respect with that. Zay Flowers at the 712. He's a wide receiver 29. That's an outside shot, a wide receiver 2. So you got Rashid Shaheed as a wide receiver 1. You got Zay Flowers, wide receiver 2. You go from there. And then we get Zamir White, Brian Robinson, 2 impact guys who should see volume. I'm not as high on Zamir White, but I get the task for him. I much prefer Brian Robinson at cost than Zamir White. I have him ranked above Zamir White. But overall, getting those 2 guys the volume plays, which is what the format rewards, you like to see. Then upside shot on Rashee Rice, who was awesome down the stretch for the Chiefs. And I know there's the suspension, all that fun stuff. If he is not suspended, he could absolutely smash that ADP. So that is well done. Chase Brown is the new hot thing in Cincinnati. So you go that, you get Chase Brown. Then we get some nice returners. We got Xavier Gibson at 1201. We got Kevontae Turpin at 1312. Those are 2 high impact guys that should be 2 of the top 10 returners in the NFL because they're going to get both kid return and punt return yards. Go from there. Justin Fields at the 14th round. I mean, you're swinging for the fences with Justin Fields. It could burn you, or you could be living life. Second half of the season it takes over. I don't really think that cost is going to kill you with Justin Fields. So I'm fine taking the shot on Fields there. Jonnu Smith. You basically needed a backup tight end. You go for your tight end 22 there. You go for that. With this route, I think it's a little early for Jonnu Smith. I'd like him a little bit later. But overall, you have Smith and Ingram in the tight end positions. You have the 2 high-end returners. You have Rashid Shaheed, who gives you a little bit of that, the wide receiver position, along with being an impact player. He was wide receiver 5 in scoring this format last year. Zay Flowers and Rashee Rice. You've done a really good job of structuring this roster. The big question mark is Deshaun Watson. That's the QB2. If he hits and if he gives you peak Deshaun Watson, what we've seen a few years ago, I don't think that's likely, but there is that in the range of outcomes. You'll be feeling really good about this roster. But overall, with Dortch late, you get Colby Parkinson. That's kind of a whatever pick that's just grabbing a tight end you hope plays a role on a good offense, which is a Stafford offense. Can't really find out that. Will Shipley should be a returner. Luke McCaffrey is a young, promising rookie attached to an offense that really needs a wide receiver 2. I mean, I like Jahan Dotson, but we still need a wide receiver 2 in that offense. So he could take a step forward, be a good guy for in the second half. Khalif Raymond, an upside shot into a really good offense. Rashad Penny, you're just taking shots on returners at that point, like guys who might play a role. Like love Rashad Penny. It's more than likely cooked for him, but overall, it's the 21st round. You just take shots on guys you think play a role. And then Jameis Winston, another guy who, if Deshaun Watson gets hurt, that's a guy that could be valuable and playable for you. Overall, I like the way you orchestrated this roster. There is a little bit of risk in the Zamir White, Zay Flowers, Deshaun Watson picks. But overall, like, this is a well-orchestrated roster. I think when you look back at it, you're going to be happy because you could flex those kick returners. You go from that. So overall, Kirk, I really like this roster. This is starting out the rosters. This is like a really good starting spot for a roster. I do think, like, if someone like Rate My League looks at this, is going to view a little bit differently. He looks at it purely on data. We're more projecting on what we're doing. So I think it's an interesting build. I like it. This should be a playoff team. I just say should be a playoff team. It does hinge on Deshaun Watson. I mean, you need Evan Ingram to kind of do what he did last year to a point. He could take a step back and go for there. But overall, not a bad roster. I would be pretty happy with that. Now, let's go to PigbirdJetFan in the Michael Corleone division. Now, we have Breece Hall at the 110. That guy could be the RB1. That's a smash pick there. Love that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 5. I don't mind those prices at all. This scoring format really rewards Amon-Ra St. Brown because these possession receivers who get a lot of first downs, which that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, they get the boost with the first down bonus. So, like, this is a nice reward for him. I like him at that cost. Dalton Kincaid, you're getting a tight end who could be the tight end 1 of the season. That's what you're betting on, the 303. If that hits, you're doing well. The one pick I'm going to push back on here is Tua. We just talked about him on our QB show. Not the best as far as like what you're looking for fantasy wise. He is QB 16 in this format. I don't mind that. You can go from there. Hey, take it. And then we get so at that range, like, I'd much prefer the cost of where you got Deshaun Watson in the 8th round at QB 22. What you'll notice though is QB 16 and QB 22. Not many quarterbacks win those 4 rounds, right? So people they ran after quarterback early and then they kind of pushed it. So you got Rachaad White at the at the running back 13, the 5th round. Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner. Conner is probably the riskiest of the options, which sounds weird to say, just because of Trey Benson. But Rachaad White's going to be a volume guy. He gets pushed down in this format a little bit because he's so heavily dependent on passing upside. But overall, he's still a good value. You know what you're getting from Rachaad White. He seems more of a floor than ceiling. Yes, babe. Okay, just one second, please.
Oh,
there you go.
wow.
You're welcome. Ramondre Stevenson, as we talk about, is a guy that will see volume. I'm not worried about the other options on offense. I know people like Gibson, but Gibson's just an up and down player. He's not consistent. They paid Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be featured in an offense that I think is severely unrelated. So I like those 2 picks. Connor's just he's a good player, and I know he's old and he might fall off the cliff this year, but it's around 7. That value's not. It's not going to kill you. I like contrasting Deshaun Watson in round 8. I much prefer to Tua Tagovailoa round 4, just because Tua doesn't really give you the rushing upside, where Deshaun Watson is still kind of mobile. He gives you a little bit more of that. I would expect Deshaun Watson to actually outscore Tua in this format. We'll see if that happens, but even with how last year went for Watson, how bad it was, he was still, for points per game basis, he was not bad at all. Then we get Rashid Shaheed, Marvin Mims. That's 2 YOLO shots. I love the value on Rashid Shaheed. That's where he was going earlier in the ADP, as it like pushed up later and later. So that's a really good steal. The Marvin Mims one might seem like a reach, but honestly, like, if he's playing both roles, the kick return, punt return, and he's playing a role in the offense, like, you're going to love that. Brad Robinson, that's a really good value pick. I like Brad Robinson as the running back in that offense, who's going to see a lot of work. I know people talk about Eckler. As much as I like Eckler, I'm fading him this year. So I really like Brad Robinson, 35 versus. That's one of your better picks, in my opinion. Jacoby Myers is more of a floor play. He's fine. I like the Trey Benson shot. What you're doing is you're capturing the Arizona backfield. So if he does end up taking over, pushing James Conner, you can kind of flip those guys. So overall, that's a good pick there. I like that kind of insulating your roster that way. The kicker 2 price, Brandon Aubrey, as long as it's not the kicker 1, you let somebody else make the first bet and go there. You get a guy who's going to be one of the better kickers in the league. I like that. Getting the second kicker is like something that I thought about doing, which is what you did with Young Hoku, but you're locking into really good kickers. So if an injury happens, it's just ideally, as far as the strategy of this format, it's not the most beneficial to attack multiple kicker spots. You're better off just paying the price on Koo there because there's really no upside of these kickers. And I know Aaron's like disagrees with me completely on this. He really likes kickers. Just from a strategy and game theory perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to pay up in round 14, which is what I did as well. But I went after the stack, so that's how I talked myself into it. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I kind of regret that decision. Should just let it happen. But overall, like, I get it. You're chasing after kickers and good offenses with this format rewards. Then we get Gardner Minshew here. We get Gardner Minshew in the 15th. That's your QB3. A guy that when you're going after these QB3s, when we're going after the Gardner Minshew's of the world, like, do they ever get on the field for you? So those are the ones where, like, are they going to outplay Watson and they outplay Tua for you? No. So they're going to play in a bye week for you. If you have the same bye week, then, like, I get it, you're taking that. But outside of that, those guys really don't serve a purpose for you. So I would much rather see teams go for these skill position players, right? These guys that have the upside of the return game or that can be a difference maker offensively, because it's round 15. There's still decent players available. Like we see Dortch and Jermaine Burton go. I like the upside shots, particularly on Dortch there, who should be a guy, what we call a discount Marvin Mims or a discount Rashid Shaheed, a guy that's going to give you return work and offensive work. You like to see that. Burton's a guy that's been getting nonstop hype out of camp. I don't know how viable he's going to be, but he's an interesting pick in the 17th round. Maybe he can push T. Higgins a little bit for the wide receiver 2 job and give you a little bit more, where is a guy that you trust. You went for the YOLO tight end trifecta there in 18, 19, and 20. Zach Ertz, he's going to be more viable than Ben Sinnott. It's just you have to ride it. Yeah, that stuff's really good, right? So I enjoy like looking at that stuff too. Yeah, we posted ours just to see like how our 4 teams did in our each individual leagues. I am more of like, I know this going in the type of drafter I am. I'm more of it like I'm willing to take on risks that other guys aren't. So I will take a shot and reach for a guy or do it. So I know sometimes my draft might not be the best in the world, but that's just how I play my drafts, right? Where it's like I'm fine taking the upside shot on the guy that other guys might, where it's like somebody might take the value play of someone that's falling in draft. I might not take those guys. Like if I don't like a player, I'm not just going to take them because ADP says I should take them, right? So that's kind of how I view it. But overall, I think it's a really good analytical way to look at drafts where there's no bias built in. It's just kind of just like he rates it, puts the data in, programs it, and you get a good look at the team. So overall, like Chicago Spartan, I think it's a really fun tool to look at and gives you an objective perspective. Yeah, exactly. Like you have to, at the end of the day, like that's what this is all about. Because otherwise, like you could just, like this is what I mean when people will like ask me to look at their teams and give them perspective. I'm like, this is how I look at it. So I'm going to give you my perspective. You can take it and accept it, or if you don't agree with it, you're totally fine. Because we all have different ways of looking at this, right? And there's, as I say, there's like a million different ways to skin a cat in fantasy football. That's this way too, particularly in this season of the Scott Fish Bowl. There's so much variance built in with his returners and the scoring and the rushing upside boost for some of these players. It's going to be the Wild West the first basically month of the season as this kind of gets ironed out, and then we get injuries built in on certain players. So yeah, 100%. But back to this team with the 3 tight ends at the end, you're taking upside shots, and with the Green Bay offense in particular, and Tucker Kraft, I don't know how healthy he is going to be because he already had that like pectoral injury where he completely tore it off. So we'll see how healthy he's going to be and when he's going to play for you. But Greg Dulcich and other guys dealing with the injury, if he's healthy, he could be the second option in that offense. And that's always what we want. We want a top 2 pass catcher on a team for a tight end. Ertz, I mean, we talked about this with Washington. Jahan Dotson maybe is that guy, but Zach Ertz could step in early and hold off Ben Sinnott, and you get production early from Ertz, who I would actually be the guy that you're going to play out of this group. Then let Dulcich and Kraft kind of come along and form those guys in. You kind of flex him in there and take him over. So, like, this is a good way of building out strategy. Young Hoku, we talked about that. And ending with another returner. I like the upside of the returners you went with here. Like, Dortch is interesting. Braxton Berrios is strictly going to be a returner. He's not going to play much of a role on offense. But Brian Robinson is the value. Marvin Mims. Overall, it's a fun roster. A couple of these picks I would change. Like, I wouldn't take Gardner Minshew there because I don't see him playing for your roster. Where you could just flex someone like another position and they could probably outscore Gardner Minshew that week. But overall, like this is a fun roster. You leaned into the volume running backs, which is what we like to see, and you go from there. So I'd be pretty happy with this roster. With the guys like the Jacoby Myers of the world, who I've been a big fan of this year, worries me with Jacoby Myers. And I know you got the Las Vegas stack with those 2 guys with Myers and Minshew. With him being the potential 3rd option, because I think at a certain point Bowers is going to take over the second option in that office. I just think that's how good Bowers is. I do worry about the viability of Jacoby Myers. Like it might be another similar to what we talked about with early on the season, like a Zach Ertz. Jacoby Myers will have that early on, but as Bowers builds and gains steam, Jacoby Myers will probably be a guy that you're not comfortable flexing unless we see more from Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell if they take this offensive step forward, which is asking a lot. Like I think Minshew's a better quarterback, but that offense in Indianapolis last year was not successful because of Gardner Minshew. He just did like the floor. He carried them enough to be somewhat viable, but it was more of the scheme of the players around him. So you're going to count on Devontae Adams. You're going to count on, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. You need these guys to be good to help Gardner Minshew out. It's not the other way around where it's like, you're not the quarterback carrying those guys. So it'll be interesting to see. Excuse me. This roster is a fun overall roster. I like the other roster better, but I like what you did here. It's a solid roster, one that you can you talk yourself into being semi-playoff contention. All right, now let's go down to the next one. We got Steve Fraser, S. Fraser 15 in the Bowser division. Shout out Mario. Very good movie. That was actually something we watched the other day. It's a really, really good job by doing that on Netflix. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. We went and saw that with my daughter. She loved it. All right, so we get into this. Bijan Robinson could be the RB1. You like that. Rushing upside from Kyler, that's a smash. Like, you getting him in the 202 might seem like a reach, but it's not. Like, he's a guy that, in this format particularly, he gets a boost just for rushing. It's even more of a boost in this format. In an offense which has more talent, you give him Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to potentially be a top 5 quarterback in the scoring format, which I'd like to see. Jameer Gibbs in the third, smash that. Love that value there. He's a true impact player. Based on the second half of the season we saw last year, that carries over, which it should, if not more. Like, he's going to be a very valuable asset as long as he stays healthy, which is what it is always, guys. George Kittle is just eternal. I love George Kittle in the 4th round. George Kittle is just a guy that's talent, and you know what you're getting out of the talent from George Kittle. It's awesome. Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp. It's kind of a similar bet. I think Waddle is a better player at this point in his career, but the second option in a really good offense, which is going to be featured around those two guys, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill in Miami, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua in LA. Like, you're betting on a top 2 option in offense that's attached to, like, I think Stafford's just a better quarterback than Tua, but attached to guys that are going to give you points because they're going to pass enough where it's going to be viable for those 2 guys. So yeah, I like those guys. I'm not sure the upside with Kupp. It's just, you just got to hope it's there without the injuries and stuff like that. But I saw someone say, like, he could easily be a top 5 option, and I'm like, easily? We're just throwing this stuff around. It's not easy for any wide receiver to be a top 5 option, particularly a wide receiver that is the second option to their offense. So we'll see, but he's going to be a focal point in the offense. This is what you want to see. If you're going to bet on a wide receiver 2, that's one of the better wide receiver 2s to bet on with these guys, right? Dallas Goedert's interesting into tight end 13. I don't mind Dallas Goedert in the 7th round. But with all the options, this is like an even more consolidated offense where you have Saquon, you have AJB, you have Devonta Smith. You know what I'm saying? It's really hard for Dallas Goedert to be the impact guy. You're going to need an injury for one of those guys, and this is something Dallas Goedert's just never been able to stay healthy on top of it, too. I think he's a good talent, similar to a George Kittle. It's actually a very similar situation with those guys. I just think Kittle's a better player. So I'm more willing to bet on the better player or a guy that I think is more talented in a situation where it's very consolidated offense. The difference is, like, they don't have Jalen Hurts rushing 150 times, right? So in San Francisco, you get more chances to get those guys the ball where it's consolidated on those guys. With Philadelphia, I know Kellen Moore's coming in. They're going to kind of just tweak the offense a little bit, and they're going to run faster. Like, I need to see it a little bit with Dallas Goedert. Now, Chris Godwin, he's a really undervalued wide receiver 36. I think he should be going closer to Cooper Kupp range and ADP. Like, that's where he should be going because he's playing the slot. Like, I know, like, he's been really good in the slot. So if he's playing in the slot, that just fits his skill scene better, and it's just easier for him because he's not an outside X, right? That's not what he does. So I really like the value on Chris Godwin, similar to the value of Mike Evans last year where it got faded too far. Same thing with Tampa Bay this year. I want Chris Godwin. I'd much rather take Chris Godwin ADP over Mike Evans ADP. That's where I would be with those 2 guys. Jonathan Brooks, upside shot. I'm looking at your other running backs, and I mean, it doesn't matter necessarily too much, but just looking for other guys you can kind of give yourself flex play worthy weeks until we're fully sure with Jonathan Brooks. I think he's a great pick in the 9th round. So as long as you're comfortable waiting it out with Brooks, like, that's really good value on Brooks because especially the second half of the year. So as long as your team can kind of hold the fort and he gets going, he's fully up to speed and really coming through. I think Jonathan Brooks will be cooking in the second half for you, particularly in this format where he gets all the work. I'm not worried about Miles Sanders. I'm not worried about Chuba Hubbard. Like, when Jonathan Brooks is ready to go, he's going to be the RB1 and be the focal point of that offense. So that's what we like to see. Will Levis. So if we're betting on QB2s, and this gets into the Bryce Young thing because you took Bryce Young two rounds later, like, that's a similar bet you're making on Bryce Young and Will Levis. Without the rushing upside, it's really hard in this format. So, like, why I'm so particular on rushing quarterbacks in this format is because it heavily rewards it. If this was your traditional league where the rushing is still more valuable, but it's infinitely more valuable in this league because you get rushing attempt bonuses, you get first down bonuses. Like, you get, if these guys are going to rush 50 to 100 times in a season, that adds up over the course of the year. Like, you think about it, 0.25 or 100, that's 25 points out the gate. That doesn't even include the first down bonus. So, like, you think about it, you can get rushing quarterbacks that are going to get an extra 100 points in the season if they go high end with this volume, right? You get 50 first downs. There's ways for them to get there. Now, I'm not saying Will Levis or Bryce Young are out of those guys, but if you're making that similar bet, I would much rather differentiate into a rushing quarterback with the upside, or like the Bo Nix, Bryce Youngs, these guys already. Russell Wilson's another guy that, I mean, he was ugly last year, but he's really valuable in this format. I think that's the thing that I push back on making that similar bet on those two guys, because it's really hard. Like, you basically just, it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of making the same bet a little bit later. So I'd rather give yourself multiple outs. And that's what we always talk about. Give yourself multiple outs. But the pick in the middle of those guys, Ladd McConkey, that's a great pick in the 11th round. I really like that. Keon Coleman, that's an upside shot in Buffalo. I know Dalton Kincaid, James Cook are the guys there, but there's room for Keon Coleman at the role. Romeo Doubs, he's a sacrificial X. Jordan Love likes him. He's going to be on the field, so he can play. He should be viable for you. Dicker the kicker, well done there. You got, I like this a little bit later, getting that kicker that's going to be similar production-wise. So going a little bit later and getting kicker, that's what I like to see. Ricky Pearsall, as long as he's healthy, he could be a special teamer for you. And if he's doing that, then there's upside built into his cost. And someone gets injured, that's a good upside bet in the 16th round. Damian Pierce is going to play special teams. You like to see that kickoff, so that's good. And then if the backup role and Joe Mixon gets injured, this is how you get a smash play, right? Like, that's how you get that. Michael Penix, I don't really see the upside of Michael Penix in the 17. What you're really banking on is you're betting against Kirk Cousins at that cost. I would rather, there's really no quarterbacks available here. So it's like, I get it. It's just, I just go other positions personally. Mooney, a guy that basically is beating out Rondale Moore, is more than likely beating out Ray McLeod. So he's going to be the wide receiver 3 in that offense, which means he will give you boom bust weeks. You're going to have to match it right, where maybe it's look at the defenses and who they're playing. And if it's a smash matchup against defense, that's where you play Darnell Mooney, and he should be able to give you some spike weeks. He's not going to be consistent. Like, just being the wide receiver 3 in offense, those guys are not consistent. Even in an offense supported by Kirk Cousins, it's just really hard to have 3 viable guys. So if you're okay rostering up and down with Darnell Mooney, like that. Dawson Knox is going to be a thorn in the side once again of Kincaid managers. So as long as he does that, should be good. I don't mind him inside of 33. You're talking 20th round. It's fine. There's not really much upside with him, but the scoring format rewards these tight ends. So if he can get any type of volume and he's running the routes, he should be viable, because they're going to run a lot more 12 and 13 personnel in Buffalo this year, similar to other teams. So Knox should get some usage. He still had a pretty good usage. Like, unlike Isaiah Likely, he's actually on the field playing. Like, Likely's pretty insignificant when Andrews plays. When Andrews is out, that's when Likely comes in. With Knox, you get a little bit more viability because he's playing a role alongside Kincaid, where Likely's not. So I much prefer betting on Knox compared to Likely. Like, I like that he gives you a little bit more floor. The ceiling's similar. Like, you need an injury to one of the tight ends for them to be that guy, right? So that's what you're betting on, either one of those guys. A.J. Dillon, that's a fine bet on a running back if you believe on him. And then Matt Prater, another kicker late. You're just taking an upside shot on Arizona offense, which is undervalued. Now, I don't know if that offense is going to work for you or not, the Matt Prater, but it's 22nd round. I don't mind grabbing another kicker in that range. So that's a solid bet. This is a really well-structured draft. There's a few of them I disagree with, but the overall mindset of this draft makes a lot of sense to me in what you were attacking, because I'm not too worried about positional strength. I'm just like, once you get past the one spot at each position, I really just want to see the best value teams, like the teams that are really going after the things that matter. So like the high-end volume running backs, the wide receivers that are see the volume of their first downs, and then basically these guys that are playing special teams on top of it too. And this is the scoring format for the tight end. So this is a pretty fun roster. Like, overall, I like what you did here. Another one similar to the couple of rosters we've seen, where there's good and bad, and that's what you're going to see in a 22-round draft. Like, there's going to be certain things you get rewarded on, certain things you don't. Now, this Mahomes pick is interesting at pick 5, and something I struggled with, who I thought about taking in there, but then I was like, can Mahomes really do that ceiling? And like, I think he's the one truly like non-scrambling quarterback. Like, he's going to give you 300 rushing yards as a quarterback. It's not really scrambler. It's kind of that Aaron Rodgers stuff in the past where he gives you a little bit of mobility. But with Mahomes, like, he can push into that 50 touchdown. Like, there's few quarterbacks you can say that about. Mahomes is one of those guys. And I think with this offense, they told us, he's really going to unload. So Dr. Casey in the Xenomorph division, which is aliens for these who don't know, you're really taking an upside shot on Mahomes. He's just Patrick Mahomes. If I'm going to bet on one, not really non-scrambling quarterback, but a quarterback that doesn't give you the scrambling upside, yeah, Mahomes is the guy. Jonathan Taylor, 208. Love the value of Jonathan Taylor there. He's going to see some of the most volume at any running back in the NFL. That's what we want. We want volume guys in this draft. So him at the 208, really good value. McBride, Ingram, and Kittle's are just a fun trio. I don't know how confident you are in Evan Ingram and George Kittle, but it's a similar bet. And basically, you did the same thing because tight end 7, tight end 8. You didn't have much difference from those two guys. McBride's the guy that feels like he keeps the tight end one. I don't necessarily think Evan Ingram, George Kittle could be the tight end one, but they can jump into the top 5. Like, they're really good. They're more high floor plays. And with Kittle, like, you just got to live and die with that boom spike week. I think we're going to see more of that from Evan Ingram this year. Just the splits with and without Christian Kirk worry the crap out of me with Evan Ingram because he went from like 13% target share to like 20 plus without Christian Kirk. So I'm a little worried about Evan Ingram. I know people are really high on him because they're like, he's a tight end 2 last year. I'm like, he was. I just don't see a path for him getting back there. Even though of the guys in this range, like, I think it's potentially there. But there's also question marks about David Njoku in that range. So it really just depends on who you want to bet of those guys. With George Kittle, like, Kittle's just a stud, man. Like, that he's just – I have a bias with Kittle. I'll happily admit it. I just think he's one of the better tight ends we've seen in the past decade. So, like, I'd rather bet on Kittle than Ingram, but, like, I get the bet. Evan Ingram was awesome last year. If he gives you close to that level of production, like, that's a smash pick there. The trio of wide receivers here, Cooper Kupp, we talked about him a lot already. Amari Cooper's the wide receiver 1, attached to the Deshaun Watson offense. They're going to pass more this year. Like, there's going to be passing. We saw with Joe Flacco down the stretch. What they're doing with, like, Brady and, like, what they switched the offensive coordinators, like, you see how that offense worked last year before the Bills got rid of him. Like, they target the wide receiver 1. And if you have a guy that's capable, I'm not saying Stephon Diggs level last year, but Cooper's pretty close to that. Like, Cooper had his best year of his career. So he might fall off a little bit, but I'm not worried about Judy. I don't think David Njoku is going to pass him as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. I think he's the guy that's cemented there, and you're getting good value. Wide receiver 27, the discount's already built in. McLaurin's an interesting upside shot. I'm trying to look, and your Derek Carr was your QB2, so there's no real stat connection, which is a little unfortunate, but I don't mind. Like, the bet on Derek Carr is interesting because we talk about, like, Kirk Cousins around 7 or Derek Carr around 13. Because he's QB 30. I mean, that's a really good discount on Derek Carr. I just don't see the upside bet in Derek Carr because we have not seen it yet. Similar to a Tua. Like, I don't want to take Tua in the 4th round. But if you're talking around 13 as my QB2, I can get behind Derek Carr because it's so cheap. Didn't cost you really any opportunity cost. Like, look at the guys going around him. You got Xavier Gibson right there. But Singletary is okay, so I'm going to talk about Singletary for a second because we've kind of seen some people in the industry talking about, like, Singletary. Why is he being ranked as an RB3? Yeah, it really comes down to the offense. And even if Singletary gets the volume, like, how good can he be with the volume? That's my bigger question with Singletary. He's never been a high volume guy, so it's not like he's going to get, like, I would not expect him to get 20 touches like on average a week. That's really high end stuff. But if he gives you 15, I think Singletary is more of a floor play. And similar to, like, Javonte Williams, kind of floor play to a point too. With Singletary, man, the offense is just rough. What you need is Malik Neighbors to raise everybody up because, like, Daniel Jones is not that good of a quarterback. Drew Lock's not either, right? So you're counting on Singletary who can – I know so we had someone on FFU comparing Singletary to Saquon Barkley. Similar-wise production, but you were talking about injuries, and I'm like, on a points-per-game basis, like, Singletary's never going to match Saquon because Saquon just gives you more volume. Like, so you're going to lose volume. You're not going to get the volume, but – RB31, I don't mind Singletary. I think early on in the season, he's going to be very viable. So, like, similar to, like, as Javonte, we figured this stuff out with Denver. Would not shock me to see the New York Giants feature Singletary early, and they kind of ease off him as the season goes on. And then you have other guys you can kind of replace him with. So I don't mind him as, like, the first month of the season play, and then see how it goes. He could just be a volume guy that's ugly, that gives you, like, flex play worthy weeks, and at that range, that's a fine bet. Coleman, what we talked about, that's an upside bet for a wide receiver 1 attached to Josh Allen. You really can't go wrong with that. Xavier Gibson, that guy doesn't have to play a lick of offense. It can give you, like, really good production. So this is why I'm so high on the returners. Xavier Gibson is particularly one of those guys. Upside shot where you're like, you just flex this guy every week. He's going to give you the worst case 10 points a game, but realistically, you're pushing 20 points per game with this guy. Like, that's not even him playing offense. Like, that's how good he's going to be special teams. So with the boost in return on, this is why I'm heavily in these returners. And we know Gibson's going to play both role for the Jets because he's one of the best returners in the NFL. There's a few guys that I trust. Gibson's one of those guys where I know what I'm getting for returning work. And I'm totally fine making that bet with him. I think that's a really good bet there. Rondale Moore's an interesting bet, right? If he gets some special teamwork, then he really pays off for you. But we talked about with Darnell Mooney. It's not looking good for Rondale Moore right now in Atlanta. So if you could go back, I would change that pick because it's not looking good. Like, if he can't earn the role, which is unfortunate because he had such a good freshman breakout at Purdue, but it's been kind of all downhill since, just because he's not really an NFL wide receiver quality player. That's not what Rondale Moore's are really shown us. Like, the route running's out there. It's all just short A-dot stuff. It's like a very worse version of Debo, and it's so hard for those guys to be anything in the NFL because if you can't run routes in the NFL, particularly small, undersized guys, like the much better version of that is like a Khalil Shakir or a Curtis Samuel, these guys that are going to do that. I think Shakir can actually do a lot more than that, but you're making that similar bet with those guys. I liked how you attacked both those guys, Buffalo, because it's like, why the heck not? You know, somebody's going to be viable. It's just hard to figure out who. Butker, solid value in the 16th. If you're going to get one guy, go get a top 5 guy. I like that. Antonio Gibson, the Keaton Mitchell pick is a little perplexing to me because we don't know when he's going to come back and what role he's going to play when he does come back because he's not going to play special teams for them. So it's like, I get it. You're making a bet on that guy, but the injury guy just, it's round 18, so I'm being a little nitpicky here. But the Devontae Foreman one I like a little bit more because he can serve a viable role because we don't know when Nick Chubb's coming back. I know there's hype around Nick Chubb, but he's still on the pup list. Like, he's not going to be ready for week 1. Yeah, shoot it over. What you got? But I'll finish these questions before we ask the question. Devin Duvernay, if he's the return guy in Jacksonville, which it looks like he might be, it's him or Agnew. And 23 round, take it up, shot there. Darius Davis, another similar to Xavier Gibson, a guy we know is going to play both return role spots. So there's upside for him at that cost if he plays offense. It's just those two guys. Like, I like that. And then rounding out with Spencer Rattler, you're just looking for a quarterback to play QB3. Don't mind that bet at all. I prefer like going. I'm not a big fan of the quarterbacks you took outside of Patrick Mahomes, but the value you got on those guys, I can get on board with. So they can give you similar production to say the quarterback 15, right? Like you can get that from Derek Carr on like a high end, and then you go from there. So overall, like this is a fun roster build. You went about it the right way in approaching, even if I don't agree with some of the selections, the overall construction of this build I like a lot because you waited and then you took the guys. So you basically took what fell to you, which is something a lot of people struggle with, myself included. Sometimes I'll reach for guys. What you did is you just let the board fall to you and you're like, all right, you guys are going to take Singletary. I'll take him. You're not going to take Williams. I'll take him. You're not going to take Carr. I'll take him. So overall, I like that. So that's a pretty good bet for you. So well done, Dr. Stacy. Are you so you have to be very, very convinced that the first is going to be early to make like, because you're counting it as early. You need to be sure because a lot of times we'll look at rosters like, oh, that looks like it, and we're not sure. So yeah, if you're assured it's going to be early first, yeah, I would take that. So I would be fine getting, because this is the deal we were talking about straight up where it was Lamar and Hurts, right? And we talked about this the other day. Yeah, so I am fine packaging Kamara in a second to get an early first. Because like say you have Hurts and Lamar even, right? Say you do. I don't, but say you do, right? Then what you're doing is you're packaging Kamara in a second. In 2026, you don't know how the second is going to be for an early first. That's a massive win for you because you're getting a player who's high-end quarterback. I know we talk about the quarterbacks suck in this class, but there's going to be a guy sort of big. There's the Tet McMillan. There's Lamar Burton. There is all the running backs. There's like the Ollie Gordon. There's the Ashton Genties. There's like all of these guys, right? There's going to be a good amount of wide receivers who come out in this class, and there's going to be a good amount of running backs. You also get like the Evan Stewarts, all these other guys that look like they're promising. So I think the skill position talent's really good. What I'm worried about the quarterbacks in general. So particularly if you don't need a quarterback, like this is a fun bet to make. And I'm always looking to do the Kamara plus a second to get a first, right? What you just have to be okay taking a little bit of the hit from Lamar to Hurts. If you're okay doing that, then yeah, like you'll look back next year, and I don't think the production is going to be that different between the two of those guys, where you're really going to regret. And like your other running backs right now are Brees, Etienne, Jacobs, and Ramondre, which means you don't even need Kamara. Like there's no need for Kamara on your roster because you're getting Brees, who's going to outperform him. You're getting Etienne, who likely outperforms to give him similar production. Jacobs could give you similar production, and Ramondre. So you have 4 other quality running backs, and in Dynasty, a good idea in general is just, so I'm going on tangent here a little bit, but taking those running backs and just moving them into more solid assets in that early first, which looks like it's early first, which you expect it to be. Yeah, I'd be fine making that bet. Like, I know I prefer like Hurts to Lamar, but I don't prefer him that much more. And Kamara is a guy I want to get out from. I'm fine. Like, I just want to move off of Kamara because like he's going to give you production this year, but man, that thing's on a cliff and it's going. So yeah, like I would take that deal. If you're sure, even if it's like a mid first, I'd probably be fine taking that deal because you could do so much more with that first in Dynasty than you can with Kamara in the second, right? So like if you have those guys close, then do that deal. So personally, yes, I would do that. Yeah, like that's a fun way of insulating your roster because Lamar's not old. Like he's still youngish, right? He's 27, I think. Hurts is 25. And you're insulating your roster with that first, which is way more liquid, gives you so many more options that you could do with. You could hold it, get a really good player next year, or you could go, if you're on a championship run, somebody gets injured, you could go spend it. Like what I did last year is I I lost Anthony Richardson for the season. He was my QB2. And I sent him in a late first I had, which was my first, which was going to be the 112, to go get Lamar because I wanted to make sure it was a 10-team league. So it was a little bit more like the higher end assets mean more in that league because they're more impactful. It's not going to be starting lineup spots. And I was fine making that deal. Does that suck giving up the first Richardson? Yeah, it sucks because Richardson's going to be the QB1 this year. But it's all about winning. So sometimes I'm all about winning and or insulating your roster. And what you're doing is you're not really losing production. There's a little bit of a gap between Hurts and Lamar. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 points, right? For Kamara, you're getting replaceable production from your other running backs. And you have, like, you're basically taking second Kamara into first. Like, that's a win. Like, that's something like dynasty managers should be willing to do. So, yeah, make that deal. I think you'll be very happy with it. So Dr. Casey, overall, I really like this roster. A couple things I would change, but yeah, this is a good build. So let's go to the next team. Now let's go to Cody Armstrong 1 in the David Wooderson division. I have no idea who the David Wooderson is, so that is a movie I have not seen. But as we just talked about, it's very fortuitous, right? We just talked about Jalen Hurts. Getting Jalen Hurts 103, Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram, that's just really fun, like straight out the gate. The discount's already there on Kelce at the 210. He might not hit the ceiling he has had in the past. He struggled with that last year, but you saw it down the stretch. He still got it. So I think we're a little too worried about him falling off a cliff. And even if he does fall off a cliff, like this is a redraft, this is fine. Like you can live with that, right? Pacheco, I really like Pacheco in the 4th. I think that's good value for a volume back who seems underrated, who he gives you an entry point into a higher possibility because he took on more receiving work last year. If that ticks on more, I mean, they have more options in that offense, but if they decide to feature Pacheco, that could totally be in the range of outcomes for Andy Reid. He's seen in the past, he's had running backs who've been really good for him. So overall, like I like Pacheco there. Jalen Waddle, we talked about him a lot about Alvin Kamara. I know I talked about Alvin Kamara, but like in the 6th round, the running back 18. Oh, sorry. Yeah, right. At that range, totally fine bet. Like, you're getting production from Kamara. Even if it falls off, he's still going to be productive because the other guys in that room just aren't that good, and we're dealing with the Kendrick Miller situation. So until we see better from that, I'm fine betting on Kamara there. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 1, Cleveland. You like that. Raheem Mostert, I mean, the discount's already implied. Raheem Mostert, that's a fine bet there. I think Raheem Mostert might be a guy that just completely falls off this year, and we'll see if that happens. But, like, it's already baked into his cost, right? So it's not going to kill you there. Really like JSN, really like DeAndre Hopkins there. And the 9th and 10th, you're getting good value on those wide receivers who could shoot for you. Russell Wilson, that's a really good value pick on Russell Wilson. He does not have to be a good NFL quarterback to produce, particularly in this format, which is what he did last year. Same thing. So I think even though it might be ugly and frustrating to watch, you're going to be surprised when you look at the end of the season and Russell Wilson's points per game. Like, they're going to be pretty high. Taysom Hill, I don't really like the Taysom Hill bet from most places just because it's like, what's the upside of the Taysom Hill? You don't know when it's going to come. It's so infuriating to try to start him. And I get it. Like, I get the appeal. He's tight end quarterback. Like, that's fun. That gives you flexibility. But in this format, he's kind of diminishes a little bit because you can flex basically anyone in any spot outside of quarterback. And I don't think we really want to bet on Taysom Hill as our quarterback. That seems treacherous. So, like, I'm just treating him more as a tight end. And you have to be willing to ride out those weeks and windows. Shakir Lockett, like, those are guys that are undervalued as well here. Like they just get pushed down because there's too many good wide receivers. So it's really hard to put those guys up. But like at the cost where you're getting there, Shakir could be the second option or Shakir could be the first option in that offense. I don't think that's likely, but I think that's potentially in his range of outcomes. Tyler Lockett, he's not going to beat out DK. Could he hold off JSN for another year? He could. Do I expect it to happen? No. But at wide receiver 55 prices, like, yeah. With the 2 Seattle picks, I think it would have been really fun to get Geno in the 12th. He probably would have been gone by there. But, like, just overall, the stacking potential with that would have been really cool. With Hurts, and I don't mind necessarily not stacking Hurts. I just think it's a cool way of getting a little bit of boost, right? So those 2 guys. But, you know, he's a 1Z like quarterback. You don't have to stack him. Like, he's that valuable. It'd be pretty cool if you could, right? We get to Ray Davis, Tyrone Tracy. There's upside attached to both those running backs. Tracy's going to be returning kicks, so he doesn't really need to play much of a role. He can just be a flex guy. If he's also playing a role as a running back and taking over for Devin Singletary, then yeah, like that's a really good pick. Ray Davis is going to be that Latavius Murray role. It's going to be kind of fine for you. I think it's just going to be frustrating to play him, like really frustrating to play him. But if he takes away more from James Cook, which is entirely possible, because he fits their scheme well. So that might be a pick you're really happy with coming in. Zach Ertz, just a late tight end. You know you're going to play early on in the season. That one works. 2 returners, Cordell Patterson, Nyheim Hines. You take the upside shot with them. QJ, I mean, like we talked about this with QJ a lot. Just about as bad as the first year you can have. So it can only get better for QJ. The more question is, like, what's the upside of QJ at this point, right? So that's more of the question. Barrios is going to return. Jacob Cowling is potentially his returner. So overall, you're taking upside shots late. I like the way you orchestrated this roster. Went through that. So yeah, like I don't have too many qualms with this roster. Like this is a fun roster. I do have a little bit of issue with Evan Ingram in the third. I think it's a little bit of a push, but you can see the tight ends went earlier. That was the sixth tight end in the third round. So I 100% get what you're going for there. I just wish maybe like you could have got Evan Ingram a few rounds later. That would have felt a little bit better to me an insulated pick. Like if you swap, so whatever, like you get Kittle in the fifth and you swap a high impact like skill position player in the third, I would like that a little bit better because Kittle and Ingram are pretty similar to me. So like that type of stuff. And obviously it's hindsight, it's 2020, it is what it is, but this is what we're doing with these rosters. So overall, like I'm kind of up and down on this roster. I could see this roster going a lot of ways where like it face plants or a lot of these guys beat out their ADP. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like some of these guys are on a cliff, some of these guys are young. It's just I'm curious to see how this roster goes, and I'm not 100% convinced, but I like what you did for the most part there. Now let's go to the original TPC, the actual fully division. Anthony Richardson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, two guys that could be the overall player one in their position. You like that? Mark Andrews, same thing, could be the tight end 1 year. You like that? Caleb Williams in the fourth, like that's really good value. And Caleb Williams, QB 15, you know what's in there because there's upside built into that cost for Caleb Williams. Devon Achane and fifth to smash. Like I love that pick in the RB13. Like that's really good value. I wish I could have got that value. I would have been hyped with that. Now Nico Collins, wide receiver 20. DJ Moore, wide receiver 22. Deontay in the 8th. Like that's really good wide receiver values. They're all kind of priced in more as floors at these costs. DJ Moore may be a little bit less of a floor, but all of these guys have significant upside attached to their name at this cost. Now, it's similar bet with Chicago and Houston, like those crowded wide receiver rooms. They might not be able to get those 150 targets you're looking for, but they could be really efficient at those roles and still be really good for you. So I like that. Deontay Johnson's like the best value of wide receiver, any wide receiver in fantasy. So getting him there, it's great. Javonte Williams, another guy, is going to be getting decent amount of volume in an offense that Bo Nix, they could get better from what it was last year because it was really bad last year. So going from that. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 1 in Tennessee. I know we talked about Calvin Ridley. I do not think it's going to be Calvin Ridley. So I really like the DeAndre Hopkins cost. And I mean, it's built in, like he could face plant this year and be cooked. And you know what? That's okay because it's round 11. Around 10, it's not going to kill you. Tyler Conklin in the 11th is an interesting bet. I don't know why tight ends were getting pushed up that high in the scoring format because if we're like, the difference between Dawson Knox and Tyler Conklin is pretty insane. Like, just give me Dawson Knox where you got there at cost, and I'll live with it. Especially considering Tyler Conklin's your tight end 2, which means you're going to be flexing him, which are the other guys going in that range. Like, is he going to score more points per game than DeAndre Hopkins? Probably not. Javonte Williams? Probably not. Cortland Sutton? It's possible. But, like, when you're getting into the flex position for these tight end, I know it's a super boost, but they still got to produce. So, I push back on that Tyler Conklin pick a little bit. The Corum one's interesting. I don't think he's ever going to take over the job there, but he can really cut into the work for Kyron. So as much as I like Kyron at cost, I like Blake Corum at cost too because there's upside built into him. Jason Sanders, you waited until the kicker run went, and then you got your guy. That's totally fine. He's a really good kicker. Don't mind that at all. Curtis Samuel, Dontavian Wicks, Josh Downs, Devontae Turman, Braxton Berrios. This is a motley crew of wide receivers. There's upside for Wicks to be the wide receiver on offense. Josh Downs gives you special teams work, even though more likely it's Anthony Gold. He's going to be a good slot player for a long time to come. And I know people like A.D. Mitchell. I'm not. Josh Downs can outperform. That's just how it's going to go. Josh Downs is a good NFL player. We need to see that from A.D. Mitchell. So I get it, but with Sykin's offense, like you can support a pass catching slot along with Pittman. You will get some viability from A.D. Mitchell too, but overall, like I like Downs at cost, particularly wide receiver 71. Devontae Turman, that's where I return upside. Same with Braxton Berrios. Those guys don't need to play a lick of offense, and they will be valuable flex plays for you. So that's good. Foreman gives you some upside there. Naheem Hines, similar upside bet in the Cleveland 2 bets. That's fine. Dustin Knox. Yeah, this is a really good roster construction. It's really heavy with wide receivers. So when you go to the Rate My League, that's what he's going to talk about. Like that's a really heavy wide receiver build because you don't have a QB2. And I don't mind punting the QB2. It's just the bye week when it comes with these guys. Like you're going to be forced into going a flex play guy, which is fine. Like you can make that work. If you're gonna I would just have taken a QB3 instead of Tyler Conklin and pick 11, whichever one of those guys, I would have gone that route. Because I do wonder what the upside for Tyler Conklin is. Yeah, no, it's Aaron Rodgers. I know he's capable of supporting guys like he did with Robert Tonyan a few years ago, like little volumes, tight end 3. I just think that's the exceptions rule. So overall, some really good picks here. This wide receiver crew from 15 and 19, you need 2 of these guys to pop. I think it's your returner guys that will. But if Wixon Downs or Curtis Samuel, one of those guys, like jumps up and beats out expectations, that's how this roster looks really good for you. So that's where you need the boost to come from, is that pit of wide receivers you took from late in the draft. But there's upside with those guys. So I like this draft. Like, this is a pretty good draft for the most part. Now, Aaron Knights, we are going to go talk about the excuse me, let me back out real quick. Oh, he cut off his team name. Okay. I was like, where'd the team name go? All right, I'm not sure which division we're in, Aaron, here, but we're just going to go there anyways. We're going to fire through this one. All right, so we got Tyreek Hill, 110, could be the wide receiver 1. If you're going to draft a wide receiver, I like to see him or CeeDee Lamb in the first. That's well done. Travis Kelce, could be a tight end 1. Like that in the second round. A little early, but I get it because the format rewards these high-end impact tight ends, which he is. Jaden Daniels in third, really good value on that. Don't mind that at all. Achane and White, both guys who are they're not undervalued because it's really hard. There's like really good running backs this year. It's just they're kind of the guys that are getting pushed down to ADP because people like other guys more. I really like both of those guys. White a little bit less because he gets dinged for the pass catching a little bit in this format, but he's a good bet. Cooper Kupp, we've already talked about Cooper Kupp. He's more of a plug play, solid. Watson is going to make or break your draft. I can already tell you this right now. Godwin's a good value. So if Watson hits, but the nice thing about it is you have Daniel Jones as your QB3. This is what I'm talking about. Even if Watson struggles, if Daniel Jones hits because he's that rushing upside, there's a world where he could outperform Watson. The thing with your quarterbacks is there's just hella risk with these quarterbacks in general. Daniel Jones could get benched. Deshaun Watson's struggled a ton. Jaden Daniels is a rookie. So, like, with all three of these guys, there's a lot of unknown about them. If there is significant upside with this quarterback room. So if you're going to invest in quarterbacks doing this, I like going this route because you got to kind of dive into the uncertainty. It's risky as hell. Like, this is a risky quarterback room. And these are the guys that are going to make or break your draft. Jaden Daniels jumping in the top 5. Deshaun Watson jumping in the top 12. Daniel Jones coming back to the form that he was 2 years ago. Like, if that happens, you're cooking with gas with this roster. Chris Godwin, severely undervalued wide receiver, really good value in the 8th. Devin Singletary, Gus Edwards. I much prefer Singletary to Edwards. I see there's actual upside more so for Singletary than Edwards. Edwards is heavily reliant upon – if he does not give you touchdowns, it's going to be very hard to start Gus Edwards week in and week out. Just because he's coming off an injury, I don't trust Edwards. He's never been a volume guy. So I know he saw a career high in that last year. Like, that pick just worries me a little bit. Keon Coleman, we talked about wide receiver 1. Daniel Jones, we just talked about him. Jalen Wright, Tyrone Tracy, there is upside attached to both of those guys at cost. So I like taking the stabs of them there. Xavier Leggett, there's been some camp hype about him. Now he's a very risky prospect. So he more fits your build where you're diving into risk, but he's a rookie. The discount's already built in. Like, I much prefer hurrying him to a Brandon Cooks because Brandon Cooks only shot a 14% target share in a barren wide receiver room last year. Like, it's pretty much over for Brandon Cooks at this point. He might have one last ride. I would rather bet on the rookie to massively outproduce Brandon Cooks. It would not shock me at all. Even though he has a significantly better quarterback. Greg Dulcich, upside tight end, who, when healthy, has been good. He just needs to stay healthy. Zach Ertz is the other tight end. We like that. He's going to be able to perform for you early on in the season. Then you can discard him probably about month 2 of the season. But overall, early, like, it's solid. Jake Moody is a good kicker. I like the value you got on kickers there. Antonio Gibson's going to be kick returner. Dustin Hopkins, that's fine. I don't know how I feel about these, like, kickers and other offenses. I do worry about the Cleveland offense a little bit, but if Watson goes, your kicker goes right there too. So I like kind of the bet you made. You're like, I'm betting on Watson. Let me bet on this kicker too. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's the 22nd round. You're like, why the heck not? Overall, this is a really fun build. It is a little bit terrifying just looking at the construction of who you took and the installation. The wide receiver room seems the safest because you got Kupp, Godwin, and Tyreek Hill is kind of the safest. Travis Kelce, like, he's the one position, not too worried about the others. The running back room, outside of Achane and White, and they do seem a little bit risky. I think White's more of a foreplay. There is guys that, like, a couple of those guys hit, you're cooking with gas. So that's what you're looking for. It's just, I like these builds because you can see someone's like, I don't care about the risk. I'm just diving in, taking the guys that go there. So overall, this is like my style of draft and what I would dive into. So this is right after what I'm going for. Well done, Aaron. I hope this works out for you. We'll talk. We'll know in a couple months when you have Deshaun Watson. Like, that's going to be the answer. If he hits, you're going to be feeling really good about this roster. All right, now let's go to Jason's team. Sergeant Jason 11 in the Fozzie Bear. So Waka. Josh Allen, 101. You know what you're getting. Josh Allen's the most impactful player in fantasy outside of Christian McCaffrey. So I like it because it's super flex. I don't mind going Josh Allen here. You're really getting the best player at his position. And he gives you a pretty significant value above replacement. Getting Trey McBride and Mark Andrews. A lot of teams are not able to do this. Mark Andrews is 312. That's a really good value. Trey McBride, the 212. Like, this is a different draft where your C tight ends are not being as forced. Like, these guys are falling a little bit, particularly these high impact tight ends. So I really like going for these early tight ends. If you get 2 of these elite guys, which McBride, I have inside as one, Andrews is like my tight end 3 or 4 this year. Like, those guys can be difference makers for you. So that's what we like to see. Josh Jacobs, a little bit treacherous play. I'm getting a little bit worried about Josh Jacobs the more and more we get into the season because there's been a lot of hype about the other guys, and they're even hyping up A.J. Dillon. I've not heard much hype about Josh Jacobs, so that does worry me. Obviously, camp hype, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, but you like to hear good things. The silence on Josh Jacobs worries me more than anything else. So, RB10, I feel like we're kind of drafting him at a ceiling. We'll see. I hope to be wrong on that because I have some Josh Jacobs dynasty roster shares that I would like to offload. Kirk Cousins, that is really early, but you can see it's QB 19. So overall, it's early. Like you felt like you had to grab a guy there. And I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's undervalued. But in the 5th round, it's a steep price to pay. But you made sure to grab a solid QB2, so I get it. But prefer the cost on Will Levis, even though the floor is significantly lower with Levis, even though he's going to scramble a little bit. I just think Kirk Cousins is a much better bet. But the difference in ADP makes it interesting, right? DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk. Not my cup of tea wide receivers, but you know Kirk's good. Like he's a forward play. T. Higgins just needs to stay healthy. He's a good NFL receiver. DJ Moore's had the best year of his career. So I know they have Rome Odunze, but he's not coming off the field. Like DJ Moore's not coming off the field. He's going to run all routes. You know the floor is really high with DJ Moore. So don't mind those guys as well. I like the stack of Tajay Spears. You're betting on the same offense. Like what I mean by stack of the same offense is like you're betting on Will Levis, so you might as well bet on somebody else in that offense, right? So you go get Tajay Spears because if Will Levis succeeds, everybody else is going to succeed in the offense. So we won't see. Tajay Spears is going to get kick returning duties on top of, being in a split backfield where there's upside attached to that cost. JSN, we talked about him a lot, really good wide receiver 2 or 3 in the offense, who could be a very viable fantasy player for you. Trey Benson, RB38. If he cuts into James Conner's workload, that is going to be a really good pick. It could be a black pick for you, but it's 12th round. It's built-in discount. Isaiah Likely, kind of talked about him a little earlier. He more or less needs injury to Mark Andrews to be viable. I get it. Like when he steps in, he's about as good of a replacement for a one-off tight end as you can get. He's just not as good. So I do worry about Likely at that pick, but it's 13th round. I get it. Curtis Samuel's a fun bet there. J.K. Dobbins. Already deal with injury. So just be prepared to deal with the injury situation that is J.K. Dobbins. That man just might be cursed. And that just could be really unfortunate with him. Adam Thielen, at wide receiver 60, I know we're pushing him down. I do worry how viable at all he's going to be, but if he's still playing that slot role, which I worry about because Xavier Leggett's kind of chipping into that worries me for Thielen because he was so heavily relying on the volume, but he can do it. Johnny Smith, I like Johnny Smith late. I would like him a little bit later, but QJ, this is a risky. There's some wide receivers in these 2 right here worry me a little bit. There's a lot of risk built into this back half of the draft. Nwangu is going to be your kick returner and doesn't really need to play a lick offense. He can be viable for you. Rashino Lee is an interesting bet. We'll see how much work he gets. I don't think he's going to be able to play for you just because Derrick Henry is going to get 80+% of the work there. That's just Derrick Henry. And that's entirely within the range of outcomes of the Baltimore offense because there's no one else remotely close to Derrick Henry in that room. I know people talk about diminishing efficiency. It's not really there. Still yards after contact, all that stuff, mid-cycle force, that stuff's not bad. Shows Derrick Henry still one of the better backs in the NFL. So I get it. I know but there's upside, significant upside attached to him. If Henry gets injured, then Rashid Ali, that's a really good value play for you. Michael Thomas, I don't understand the bet on Thomas here unless we're just saying he's going to sign somewhere and be valuable for you. This reminds me we do this with these older running backs who dealt with injury, has been just miscast for a few years. Once it's kind of over, it's over. People were hyped for Julio Jones. He signed somewhere. It's gone. With these guys late in their career, and I know Thomas is younger, but once it goes past them, they don't get it back. So you can always replace Thomas. I won't worry about that. But I really like you getting your kicker 1 this late in the draft because it's take a shot on your kicker. And that's Kirk Cousins, the kicker right there. So that's the guy you stack that way. We like doing that. So overall, the back half of this draft does terrify me. I am worried about a lot of these guys. But if a few of those guys take a step forward, which is what we always talk about second half, take upside shots on guys you like. If you like them, then heck yeah. Not my cup of tea. But overall, I see what you had the mindset behind this. So overall, it's a solid draft. You can talk yourself into this being a playoff team, which is what all we're asking for because half the teams are getting in of 4,000 plus. So as long as you're top 2,000, that's all it takes. Just with all these rosters, we need to make sure you are vigilant and churn the waiver wire and do that because you know what? It'll go fast for you. All right. So we already did the athletic profiles. Got a couple more I want to cover. We just got so many of these to do. All right. So jetsfanR in the Bell division is their AR. So let's roll through this one. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1, bang. his value was about as good as you can get from a WAR perspective. I mean, it wasn't Christian McCaffrey level, but he was right there. Like, that's a guy you want that's going to separate himself from the pack. Because let's be real, Lamb could lead the league in targets, yards, receptions. Like, he can do all of that in the offense. You stacked him with Dak Prescott. I normally don't like going on these passing quarterbacks in this format, but like the stack really pays off. Kyron Williams, I really like Kyron Williams. He's being discounted, like discounted RB7, but he's being discounted because of Blake Corum. If he does not give up that role, like he's going to be a value. And what you did is you made sure you insulated. You wanted the RB1 in that offense. I think both of these, Corum to a lesser degree, but Kyron's going to be awesome. Corum could still be viable for you alongside Kyron. So overall, Ferguson in the 4th round feels like a reach, but it's the tight end 9. I get it because the tight ends were going earlier in your draft than most drafts. So yeah. And then you get Drake London in the 5th. That's really good value. Wide receiver 13. Like, people might not think that's really good value, but people don't understand like what Kirk Cousins does for this offense. He helps them out so much. Going from Desmond Ridder and freaking whatever the guy's name is, I can't remember. I'm blanking on it, but not a good quality NFL quarterback. We'll just say that. Going to Kirk Cousins helps these guys out so much. So the pass catchers of the offense get such a big boost, man. It's particularly the top options. So Drake London and Kyle Pitts, like, we love what those two guys are going to do for us this year. Deshaun Watson, another guy that anytime you're betting on Deshaun Watson, you know it's going to be risky. So you bet on Deshaun Watson. This is what it is. Nico Collins. Love Nico Collins, particularly wide receiver 292 prices. What are we doing here, folks? Nico Collins is a freaking stud. He just had one of the best years of the NFL, and he's going to do it again. So, yeah, I get it. The Stephon Diggs. I get Tank Dell. But, yeah, Nico at cost. I love Nico at cost. Love Tank Dell at cost. And Stephon Diggs, like, at cost, too. Like, I like all the options of that offense because CJ Stroud shows us he's going to be capable of supporting them. So, expects the pass attempts to jump this year because it's year 2. Those pass attempts will jump. Those guys should all feast. The upside of the top 5 amount of name there from Nico Collins, he can give you top 12 season for sure. Zach Moss is an interesting bet. You're basically making a bet on whoever the RB1 is there. It was looking good earlier in the year for Zach Moss, and now it seems like it's slipping Chase Brown. We'll see if that holds up. I don't mind investing that capital, even though it might seem a little rich now with Zach Moss. Like Corum, like we talked about, you got the other running back in that offense. You've insulated the Rams roster, so as long as the guys don't get injured, should be good. Khalil Shakir is a fun bet for Buffalo. Like, that's just a fun bet to make. I'm more on the Curtis Samuel train because they paid Curtis Samuel buku bucks, and Curtis Samuel has been a viable NFL player, not just wide receiver player. So they kind of overlap in skill set. I just don't know who's playing outside. If it's Samuel playing outside along him, or if it's Shakir on the outside. Neither one of those guys is really an outside player, so we'll see. But like this is what I'm talking about. Like, Khalil Shakir in no world should be going above Deontay Johnson. Like, that type of stuff, that's absurd value. Deontay Johnson 11, that's so good. Like, you're getting a guy theoretically that can push hard for targets. I'm dead serious. Like, his career is 142 over like 17 game seasons. Like, he dealt with injuries. So yeah, he's just a really good targeter, and they're building the offense around him. So Deontay Johnson is the best wide receiver value like that there is right now. You got a guy that could be a top 12 option in the freaking 11th round. Do you see what I'm saying with that? Like, that's money. Lab McConkey, another good value bet. Tyler Conklin, I like this upside. Like, taking him at 13 to 11 is a little bit better. I do worry about the Tyler Conklin upside. Like, does worry me in that range. I wish we could get him a little bit later, but in this draft, tight ends went early, so you had to grab your guys. So I get it. Jake Moody, kicker 5, fine bet there. Like, once you saw the kickers going, you're like, I will take the guy. I just don't want to be the guy to take the first kicker. Like, that's because the kicker differential is not much here. So, like, I get it. You're betting on one of the top kickers. Personally, I think the best strategy is just wait. But getting a good kicker, it's more of an assurance for yourself than it is like strategy wise. So you made sure to lock up a good kicker, which is what it's all about. Sutton, Dobbs, and Douglas. All these guys could be the one. I know this sounds crazy. They could all be the number 1 wide receiver on their team. And this is crazy saying out of Dubs, but it's entirely possible. So you're making bets on those offenses and the skill positions are undervalued in Green Bay, not necessarily the talent wise, because you got Curlinstein could be the wide receiver 1. Romeo Dubs could be the wide receiver 1. Demar Douglas wide receiver 1 on each team. That's what you want to make, a bet you want to make. Gardner Minshew, when you get him in the 18th round, I'm fine just getting a guy you can plug and play for a week there. That value makes a lot more sense than Gardner Minshew in like the 13th, right? Like, that type of bet I'm fine with because you're getting a quarterback who should be starting. There is some talk that AOC might take over at some point, so maybe not Minshew right there, but with Duvernay in the 19th, if he's the kick returner in Jacksonville, like, that's going to pay off big time. Kenny Nwangwu is going to be the kick returner in Minnesota. You like that. Anders Carlson is another. You're just betting on another kicker really late. And I mean, it's Green Bay. It's good offense. I don't mind that bet at all. And then Jalen McMillan. We like Jalen McMillan. All the good things we've heard from Jalen McMillan. I don't know how viable he's going to be in year 1, But really like Jalen McMillan in Dynasty because he's going to be a good NFL player, which I've said since freaking came out in the draft process. So I was like, yo, dude, Jalen McMillan's a good NFL receiver. The interesting thing is they're not playing Jalen McMillan as a slot. He's going to be more of a flanker in the offense, kind of take over the Chris Godwin role long term when they let Chris Godwin walk next year. So I think I really like the McMillan bet long term. This year might be a little bit up and down, but he's a good NFL player, and I think he'll be a good fantasy player for a long time. So maybe not this year, but I like the bet on McMillan's and maybe exceed expectations. So that's a fun bet. I like that. How many we got here? 1, 2. I want to go to cut it off there. All right, so I'm going to cut this off at 1:30, so I'll see how many I can get through here. All right, let's go FF Star, Rocket Raccoon. So, Christian McCaffrey, 104, and no complaints. Best player in fantasy, most impactful. That's well worth it. Because what you assure yourself you're doing is if you take that guy early and you could still get a really good QB1, which Dak Prescott definitely could be, that I like a lot. And then you get Derrick Henry in the third. Derrick Henry there's not a player that fits the scoring better than Derrick Henry. Rushing attempts, first downs, all that stuff, which Derrick Henry's going to see a ton of them. If the interesting thing is if you compare basically Derrick Henry, what he's done to the Ravens RB1 over the since he took over, and he had the lead job since they moved on. It's actually really similar to what Henry's done over the course of his career when he's played all 17 games. So there shouldn't be much of a difference in production from Henry. I think that's the thing that people aren't realizing is they can support a really good running back in Baltimore. They just split it up so much. When it consolidates around Derrick Henry, so you do about 80%, you're talking about 1,400 yards in that offense. 10 plus touchdowns, easy for Derrick Henry. I think as long as he stays healthy, that's entirely possible range outcomes because I know the Ravens offense line is going through some differences, but Lamar, everything is, I get it. There is downside Derrick Henry cooked and it could be over there, but you're getting me RB9. It's really not killing you. And by killing you, I mean, that's a stretch because it's third round, but I like making the bet in that range of Derrick Henry. I get it. He's old, but sometimes you got to be you know what? I'm just riding the big dog. We're going to let him eat. So yeah, I like that bet there. Evan Ingram in the fourth. I like it better in the fourth there. Still a little bit early for my blood just because we talked about the splits with Christian Kirk, but I think he's one of the last tight ends one of the tight ends you talk yourself into 100 plus targets being good for you. So yeah, I get the guys there. Rashid Shaheed, that's where I took Rashid Shaheed. A bit of a reach, but I love Rashid Shaheed. I think he's super valuable for you. The only difference is, and this is the thing that sucks about reaching for guys, there are teams that got Rashid Shaheed in the 9th, the 10th round. When it comes to playoffs and you look at the difference on that, you're that's the killer. So we have to be careful reaching, but I was guilty of it too, just because sometimes I can't contain myself. So it just is what it is, right? But overall, yeah, the Baker pick, I don't like that early. That's the one that bothers me. I would rather wait, but it's so treacherous waiting when you're already on QB 21 and already you're playing the waiting game. See how long you could wait because you get to Daniel Jones the 12th round, right? I like the upside of going for Daniel Jones late, but you could probably get a Geno Smith and one of those guys around 9, around 10, and you feel a lot better about the roster, right? Because you didn't really get a stack option with Baker Mayfield. I'm looking at the roster right now. So there's no stack option you got with him. So I don't think the Baker Mayfield is that important for your rosters, how you orchestrate it. It's just you're forced into taking your quarterback 2 there, which you kind of have to push back against if you can't get a rushing quarterback to give you upside, because that's what we're chasing for. We want guys to give us upside into that. And we know Baker Mayfield does not offer that, right? That's just something Baker Mayfield doesn't. On top of that, they're changing the scheme. They're asking him to do more. They're diversifying everything in the offense. So I do worry about Baker Mayfield a little bit this year. I think he's just going to be more reliant on Chris Godwin. I think it's what it comes down to. Malik Neighbors there. I get it. I know the offense sucks, but he's so good in the 7th round. You got to make the bet. And then 9th round, Odunze. Those are the 2 wide receivers I love the value on because they're rookies, but they're so freaking good players, man. They could massively outseed these expectations. They could just be just incredible players out the gate in those offenses. So, I know the uncertainty with rookies, you have to buy into them at this cost. Aaron Jones worries me. I expect him to be splitting work in an offense that I'm not so sure is going to be a good offense in Minnesota. They have talent. I just don't know if J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold can do it. So that's just what worries me with Aaron Jones. Now, if he's getting workload like he was getting back half of last year, then hell yeah, sign me up for Aaron Jones. But more than likely an injury is coming for Aaron Jones because he's had him the last few years. So it just seems like a really risky bet without the upside for Aaron Jones. Ridley and Brian Thomas Jr., you're going after guys that could be the wide receiver ones on their team. I like Brian Thomas Jr. I think I got him the exact same pick. I was the 105, so the 208. So the 1108, excuse me. But yeah, you're taking shots on rookies who time and time again pay off and outbeat expectations more than any other position because the uncertainty is built into those guys. Now you got to deal with Christian Kirk, you have an Ingram. It would have been fun if you could have got Trevor Lawrence on this team because you'd have Ingram, but like the issues Lawrence goes so early, it's really hard to make this work. You'd have to hear a Shaheed pushing back around or something like that, and he usually goes in the 4th range, so you'd have to move off Ingram. So it's kind of tough to make that stack work, but theoretically, if we could play the game theory thought that plays through, like I like that a little bit better. Daniel Jones, upsides, there's downsides 0, but the upside is he's a mobile quarterback who can give you fantasy valuable weeks. So overall, nice bet there. Kendra Miller, we talked about this, a bunch of Kendra Miller. I just don't know what's going on with Kendra Miller. If he can't stay healthy, he's not going to play New Orleans, and that's the clearest thing in the world. So he needs to find a way to stay healthy. Hunter Henry, one of the last guys that could play a viable role and be decent for you. The upside might not be there, but he's more of a floor play. He's fine. Kamani Vidal, love the bet there. Like we talk about rookies, there is upside attached because J.K. Dobbins is dealing with an injury. Gus Edwards is dealing with injuries. What Vidal needs to show off in camp and in preseason is that he is a difference maker back. And he might start out slow. He might be playing like the pass catching role 3rd downs. If he builds off of that, that's how you develop a role. Particularly these late round rookies, like they have to earn everything. So if Vidal can go in and show that, because he's already behind Jared Patterson right now. So he's going to need some time to do it. But if he shows off, that's how he massively pays off expectations right there. Jatavian Sanders, the rookie tight end attached to Bryce Young, scares the bleeping you-know-what out of me. I just don't know. With rookie tight ends, man, it's so hard. Like, they have to learn so much. So I get the pick there, but I would much rather bet on a tight end that's not a rookie just because the upside for him just seems like it's basically 0 in year 1. I get it. People like him coming out of Texas. Just he's not the athletic freak we thought he would be, so that's kind of the issue too. So I don't know if the upside's there anyways for him. He's more of like the Zach Ertz mold where he's going to be a guy that's going to have to earn a lot of volume. And it's going to be tough in this offense. Maybe it could happen, but I don't expect it to happen for a few years. Jake Elliott, a really good kicker in the 17th round. I like the cost of that a lot more. Malachi Corley, Mike Williams is a TBD. There's really no one else pass catchers in that offense. So, like, if Malachi Corley can be a guy early on and build as a rookie, he could be the number 2 option behind Garrett Wilson in this offense. Like, they have Breece Hall, obviously, but, like, in the pass catching game, then that would be a really good bet for him. So, Kevontae Turpin, Anthony Gold, really good return bet there. I like that. And then Adam Thielen. Like, it's like, why the hell not? A freaking 21st round. Like, even if he's dust, it really doesn't kill you. So, yeah. And then Sam Howell, upside bet. Maybe something goes wrong with Gino. He takes over. You know he's going to give you fancy valuable weeks. So, yeah. I like making that upside bet. Like we said, the same thing with Daniel Jones. The floor is a 0, but it's 22nd round. It does not matter. All right. We are going to do one more here. We're going to do we do Star Wars or what do we do? Sorry, I'm just kind of all over the place. Yes, we just did. Sorry. All right, so the last one is going to be Cole Privets, who actually does injury data and stuff. So you click here. If you're curious and want to see someone like injury research, make sure you follow Cole. He does injury research, which is really like the aspect of fantasy that a lot of us don't know a lot about. So anytime you see a PT or DPT, you go check what these guys do. Go check out Cole's work. He does really good work on here. So I was like, I recognize Cole. I've seen him before. Like, that's why. Okay, so getting back to this. And this should tell you, like, him buying into Anthony Richardson, all you really need to know, because somebody who does injury data and stuff like that, they know, like, Anthony Richardson's risky, but, like, the upside far outweighs the downside. So this should put the kibosh on anyone else that's really, really worried about injuries with Richardson. I get it, but you just have to take the upside shot. Jonathan Taylor, that's a fun little stack on the offense. It's a very expensive stack, but you know both of these. With Jonathan Taylor, he's going to get some of the most work in the NFL. Anthony Richardson's just a pure cheat code for fantasy, and he's purely designed for this format of all formats. So that's pretty cool. Andrews, we've been over this a bunch of times. Could be the tight end one. Chris Olave, I get it. Wide receiver 14, it might seem like it's expensive. It's not that expensive. It's built in. Like, there is significant upside. Now, can Derek Carr hit that upside? I don't know, but the scheme change works really well for him because these guys were pushed downfield, and this is what the new OC is bringing over. So, like, they're going to bring some more motion that should help Shaheed and Olave free these guys open because motion, that's what it does, and motion and pre-snap motion. It gives you freer looks and kind of helps you better understand the defense what they're running. So, like, bringing that over should really help these guys out and free them up. Will that work with Derek Carr on that offense? I don't know, but, like, if we're getting the discount like Olave and these guys are, like, and then it's Shaheed too, like falling to a point, then yeah, I like that. Pittman's another guy, like you got the stack with Anthony Richardson, and I know people are worried about Pittman, but dude, they run an RPO offense. He's going to be the first read. It does not matter the other guys in the offense. When you're the first read in an RPO offense, you get looks. That's how it works. Pittman's their best wide receiver. So what does that mean? in the RPO offense, you run it and you get the ball out to the first read. If you don't, like, you don't get to go through the read. Like, that's not how RPO offenses work. So this is why I think the floor on Pittman is a lot higher than people think. The ceiling might not be there because they have the other options, but like Pittman just shown he's like a really quality NFL wide receiver. He lives in the intermediate, like he could do those. I think Matt Harmon called him like a kind of a discount peak Michael Thomas. But getting a guy in that range who could be a target hog, which Pittman could be again, I think we've kind of slept on Pittman too much. I know they drafted A.D. Mitchell. I know Taylor's back. I know they got Richardson, but like I think the floor's really high on Pittman. So like I like the stack there because the nice thing about Pittman is you could push him in drafts. Like a lot of people did not want him, so you're getting him as opposed to round 3, like where a lot of these wide receivers go. You're getting him around 5. That's really bad. David Njoku, one of the last guys to give you that upside of being a true tight end 1. Now there are some split issues and like there weren't too many options going on last year with David Njoku, but what we saw last year gives us hope for David Njoku that he is fully back at what we wanted to see when he was a first round pick, right? So I think he's reached that point in his career where it's going to happen. It just all depends on Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun Watson hits. Kirk Cousins. I love Kirk Cousins. He's one of my favorite bets. A little bit early for Kirk Cousins. Like I get it. Like I just much rather like, yeah, you got Geno. Like I would much rather bet Geno the 13th. That's absurd value. I would much rather bet on Geno at the quarterback 29 prices than Kirk Cousins 19. Like, I know I talk about rushing upside quarterbacks, but like at a certain point, like these just good quarterbacks fall too far. That's absurd with Geno. So yeah, I much prefer the Geno like in the 13th round as a Kirk Cousins in the 7th. So I would have loved to see a little bit later, like a Kirk Cousins fall or getting someone around 10 or 11, just because the opportunity cost is a little steep. But I love Kirk Cousins. And he's been one of my favorite fantasy quarterbacks for a long time. So I'm not going to push back too much on that. Jonathan Brooks, this is another guy like we talk about injury situations and ACL injuries. What you are seeing here is a Jerome Ford bet. So that's not a Nick Chubb bet, folks. So take that for what it is. But like we've talked about, much more into Brooks than we are like of Chubb. Like Brooks is my RB1. I'll have Brooks there as long as you're patient with Brooks. Give him some time to runway. It's going to be a great bet. Lyle McConkey could be the wide receiver one of the Chargers. That's what we'd like to see. Jerome Ford is going to have the pass catching role in that offense, which is kind of weird to think about. But like he's not going to be the early down grounder. He's too small. He gets though. One thing I worry about with Ford is Deontay Foreman and Nick Chubb something like they're going to steal all those touchdowns and those goal line looks for him. So he feels more of a floor play to me than a ceiling play. But Jerome Ford he's not a bad player. I think he's fine and can fill in for you. Kind of like, and I see the bet here. It's like you bet on Brooks and you're also betting on Ford. What you're doing is you're giving yourself some production from Ford to give Brooks some runway. So like he might not be fully back ready to go week 1. So what you do is you insulate the roster that way. I like that bet. Christian Watson, upside bet. Can those hamstrings stay healthy? I don't freaking know, but I would love it if they could. Upside bet. Yeah, Luke Musgrave, he's tantalizing. Another physical freak athlete whose production profile is pretty just all over the place, but he got the draft capital. I liked him coming out. He just needs to stay healthy because he dealt with some pretty nasty injuries in year 1. And the other tight end they have on that roster is dealing with injuries right now, too. So I think Musgrave is a fun bet to make in the 12th rounds about a guy that could be a top 12 option. Now, is it likely? Not necessarily, but this we're talking about here in the 12th round. If you find yourself and you do the math and you're like, this guy can be a top 2 option in his offense or be a top 12 overall option, I take the bet there. I already talked about how much I like Geno. I think that's a smash pick for you. That's really, really good value for Geno. A.D. Mitchell and Jalen Polk. I think A.D. Mitchell is just a fun NFL player. He might not be able to earn targets, but this guy can win. Like he can consistently win. So you have Anthony Richardson. You're making another bet on an Anthony Richardson asset, which is a good. Like I like these stack bets because that's what you got to do in the Wiz tournament. You got to stack, folks. Like that's what you got to do. Jalen Polk could be the wide receiver 1. He's been getting hyped out a bunch already. He's already running with the ones. Like he's doing everything you would want for a round 2 pick to do. And I know people already lost production profile. I'm not. I think he's another NFL player who could just consistently win. So you're going to see that in a more barren wide receiver room. Like he could be the wide receiver 1 I've seen. I don't think that's happened with Mitchell, but Polk for sure. Like he could do that. Now I think Demario Douglas is the most likely, but there's upside there for Polk. Parkinson, you're just betting on tight end. Don't mind that tight end upside bets like him and Bellinger. It's like why the hell not? With Higbee's injury issues and all things, he's kind of a declining player. It's like might as well bet on Parkinson, hope it works out. Bellinger. I mean, it's him or Theo Johnson, right? It's one of those guys going to be the tight end 1. We don't know who it's going to be. So you're betting on the guy there. Barrios is going to be a returner. Roshan Johnson, still holding the candle for Roshan. I know Aaron loves Roshan Johnson, so he's still holding the candle. Myself, I was like, man, I liked him as a prospect, but I think he's going to be more of an impediment for DeAndre Swift than anything else. Like, Swift's just never been that type of volume guy, and he's really up and down runner. So, like, he frustrates coaching staffs with what he does. Roshan's a more consistent player. Now, he needs to work on some things. but he's still learning the position. Remember, like, folks, he was a quarterback going into college, so he transitioned to running back. He's still learning it. It's going to take him some time. So overall, like, I don't mind 20th bet on Roschon, particularly if there's an injury to Swift. Like, that's how he pays off costs for sure. Brandon Powell, it's like, why the hell not? And same thing with Rasheen Ali. You're just betting on guys in good offenses. Like, Minnesota could be a good offense, so Powell could be still there. And Rasheen Ali, it's Jeremy's favorite player, so heck yeah, I like that. So that, it's 134. We're going a little past time here, so I just wanted to, we're going to wrap it up. So thanks to Cole for bringing that roster. Good luck this year to your team. I like your team overall. Should be a fun team. Yeah, that's it. Monday, marvelous Monday here at the FFU doing SFB reviews, all that fun stuff. We are trying to get through as many as possible. It is, if you're noticing, paying attention to how we're doing these, you can get to about, 15-ish every 2 hours, because I like to put in a little detail. I like to actually dissect the roster and give you guys the deserved attention that you deserve on these rosters when you're submitting them, not just do a throwaway, review. Like, I like the roster, it's fine, move on. Like, I like to put time and effort into this because you spent the time to us, so I like to share that with you guys. So anyways, we are working our way through these. I will continue to work way through these with each day that I can. I have some spare time. I spend an hour and a half. Like, I will put that time in there for you guys. So I'm sorry I missed this question, Scott. I didn't even see this. I will answer this one real quick. No, not really. I think Chase is really good. I'm curious what you're referencing with the Jamar Chase situation. If there's something I'm missing, I'm gonna have to look at that, because everything I know about Jamar Chase, they're moving him more towards playing like in the intermediate, going to do a little more spot stuff. He's playing not as downfield. So unless there's something that popped up, and maybe I'll go check Twitter, see what information I'm missing. But in the meantime, no, I'm not worried about Jamar Chase. Who knows? I could sound like an idiot here in about 5 minutes. But anyways, never forget, thanks to everyone who joined us on Twitter, on TikTok, on Snapchat, on YouTube, all the social media platforms. We very much appreciate all of you spending quality time with us, because if you're spending quality time with us and sharing with us, we respect that, because your time is money, man. So you guys taking the time of day to come and check out what we're talking about, that means the world to us. So for everyone that is watching this, I just want to say, make sure you like, comment, you subscribe. The more subscriptions we get, the better it is for us, the more we can get, because we're this close to getting monetized. So we are only a few subscribers away. I think we're about 100 away from getting monetized. And once we get monetized, that's really cool. That's what our goal is going into the summer. So we hope to be monetized by the beginning of the season, and we're on pace to it. So this is a really good start for us. We started back in January. We're working our way towards it, and we're just trying to build out all this good content. So anyways, all the feedback and everything, very much appreciate this Monday. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Monday. As Ian Harded says, it's a great day to be great. So go enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see more from us tomorrow. So yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and take care. See if I can find the exit. There we are. Adios. Folks.